And welcome to MLB Tonight, presented by Camping World. And say hello to Dan Plesac and Harold Reynolds via NTT Home Plate Cam. Guys, it's been a while since I've seen you. We're on the verge of Memorial Day weekend, so obviously we want to thank all the great servicemen and women out there who protect us and keep this country safe. But Ace, let me start with you. Usually for Memorial Day weekend, we're about a quarter way through the season, and we start to get kind of a good look at kind of who's who as we move on here. Monday obviously is always a big day. A little odd not being there this year.
No doubt about it. You know, this is the time when you reach down into your minor league system, bring somebody up, or you got a youngster that may have been struggling, you send him down, or you say, we got to make some trades. And the other thing, Dan, that was so cool about Memorial Day weekend, we played a game in Cleveland, in old Cleveland Stadium, the Mistake by the Lake, right? Remember what we used to call that? We had 72,000 people at that game one year. I mean, it was incredible. So you get the big crowds, and baseball starts to turn a little bit as we go to the summer months. That's my memories of Memorial Day. How about you, Dan?
Same thing, Harold, and friend, and to you, friend. I think Memorial Day is like really the first grading period for your team. You kind of understand where you're at, what you need to improve. Are you going to look forward to the trade deadline in July? So that Memorial Day weekend is kind of that first weekend where, as a team, you evaluate where you're at, where you think you're going. Let's hope that the next grading period, the 4th of July, that we're talking about real baseball games.
All right, guys. Hey, look, we are celebrating the 40-year anniversary of the Philadelphia Phillies winning their first ever World Series championship back in 1980. They took out the Kansas City Royals in 6 games, and we've been showing games from that series all day on the network. And the MVP of that series joins us. You know him as the first ballot to Hall of Famer, Mike Schmidt. Mike, say hello to Dan Harold. It is Fran. First thing I got to ask you before we dive into the World Series, what's up with the jersey? I love it. There's got to be a story behind it.
Morning, guys, and I'm honored that you've recognized the 40th anniversary of our World Series championship in Philadelphia. This jersey was used on the Goldbergs show, which is a show about that period, that decade in Philadelphia, and then a lot of times they highlight one of the sports teams in the show, and one of the times they used my jersey on the show, and one of the things they did with the jersey on the show was they called it bedazzling, and the mother on the show put these little studs all over the jersey and gave it to one of the kids. And they sent it to me after the show. It's never been worn. It's actually too small, and it's actually 90 degrees out here where I'm sitting, so I may want to peel it off here in a minute. But my wife said, well, why don't you wear that bedazzled jersey if you're going to be on MLB this morning? So she talked me into it, and I did. And here I am.
Smart lady. There you go.
There. Pretty cool, huh?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mike, you were the MVP of the series. What was it like for you to bring a World Series championship to Philadelphia? It was the first one in Philly's history.
Fran, it was pretty exciting. First of all, we had failed in the postseason, but in 76, 77, and 78, we got close, but in the postseason, but we got hammered by the Reds, Big Red Machine in 76, and beaten by the Dodgers in 77 and 78. Of course, the Pittsburgh Pirates won it in 79, and we got in it. We got in it by the skin of our teeth in 1980. We just, I guess we were the kind of the team that wouldn't die, and we got in it, and we brought a championship to Philadelphia. And for all of us, I think all of the guys that had been together on that team, had lived together in the offseason in Philadelphia after suffering those 3 years in the postseason, we all kind of felt like we were guys that couldn't play well under pressure. We couldn't bring the championship home, and finally in 1980 we did. So I guess it kind of relieved the pressure of not being able to get it done in the postseason, not being able to get in the World Series after failing 3 times. And for me personally, I got a few big hits for the team down the stretch there, and kind of made made us guys that could play under pressure and do the job. So that's one of the things in your career that you want to have. You know, you want to have for your resume to be complete as a player. You know, that championship ring on your finger sort of makes that happen.
Mike, you were part of some great games and a big part of some great games. 1979, a 23-22 game at Wrigley Field. What do you remember about that crazy game?
Well, actually, the anniversary of that, I believe, was recently. Somebody called me and said that, you know what today is? Today's the anniversary of the 22 game. So much happened in that game, Dan, and it's a long time ago, 79, I guess you said. That's 40 years ago, and it's hard for me to remember specifics other than I believe my home run at the end won the game. 23-22. I know I got a few walks in the game. I think 4 or 5 guys hit 2 home runs in that game. I believe Dave Kingman almost hit 3 home runs in that game, or almost had a chance of hitting his 4th, I think. I'm not sure, but I know he hit a few. One of the wild ones. I know it's been replayed on MLB several times. It's always one that's talked about, Dan, and just goes to show you how crazy baseball can get at times, especially at Wrigley Field, you know, with a little breeze blowing out. Not a good day to pitch, right?
No, not at all, Mike.
Hey, Mike, it's Harold here. You know, I grew up in Oregon, and I remember as a little leaguer, early teenage years, I grew up with a buddy of mine, Kurt Kemp, who's an executive with the Padres now. And his dad used to take us to the Eugene Emerald games, and he'd say,
right?
Watch Boa, Schmidt, and Luzinski. And he said, right. Schmidt's the guy. What do you remember about playing in Eugene AAA in those days?
Well, we had a great team. Harold, I believe Boa and Luzinski played the year prior to me. They were both in the major leagues the year we played there. We had an unbelievable team. You know, a lot of guys that played in the major leagues the year prior to that year were on the team. You know, we had Andy Thornton and Bob Spence. These are some names that most people may not remember, but Craig Robinson, shortstop. John Vukovic played on that team. Bob Boone was a catcher. You guys remember Oscar Gamble, right?
Oh, yeah. Did he have a throw back then, too?
Yeah. So we had a lot of really experienced players on that team, and so did Albuquerque, by the way. Albuquerque was, you know, in the Pacific Coast League, and Say and Yeager and, you know, Doug Rao, and there was a lot of really good players. Davey Lopes was on that team. So we were the 2 premier teams in the league at that time. And what a fun league to play in, guys. We went to Hawaii twice in the season and stayed for 8 days each time to play the Hawaiian Islanders. So that was one of the cool things about that year. And Eugene, the Willamette Valley, I believe they call it, Harold.
Yes, sir. You're spot on, Mike.
What's that?
You're dead on. The Willamette Valley, no doubt about it.
No brains working this morning. You know, there's a lot of rain, right? Have a lot of rain up in that part of the country. And aside from the rain, the weather was, you know, when it wasn't raining, it was beautiful. You know, it's nice and cool out there. And I remember the stadium, absolutely. Harold, that was the first place I ever learned to hit a ball to right field. They had I believe it was, 290, 270, something like that to right center with a short wall. And I hit a couple fly balls to right center, and they actually went over the 290 fence out there. And I went, what is that? You mean you can hit a ball to right field? Get a home run? I didn't know you could hit a ball the opposite field to get a home run. Oh, yeah. 280, 90. I remember that. I played second base, Harold. I played second base that year, which was a lot of fun, more involved in what's going on defensively. And I had a pretty good year individually. And a long way from Philly. But I got called up at the end of the year. And, you know, I guess that was kind of the year that propelled me onto my career.
That's Mike, awesome, enjoy the year-long celebration of your 40-year anniversary of the Phillies winning the World Series. Always great to talk to you, and thanks for spending some time with us.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Have a great day. Stay safe. And hope to see you sometime down the road here in the summer at a baseball game.
Sounds good.
Dan, I
Sounds
can't
good.
believe you didn't give us a Michael Jack Schmidt. Dan, you got to lead us with that. You got to lead us with that.
Michael Jack Schmidt, out of here.
Yeah, guys, have a good day.
All right,
Thanks,
Mike. Thanks. All right, got to take a break here on MLB Tonight. The MLB Draft coming up June 10th and 11th. Will Spencer Torkelson or Austin Martin go number 1 overall? We'll discuss next.
MLB Tonight is presented by Camping World, making RVing fun and easy since 1966. Visit campingworld.com today.
Back on MLB Tonight, the 2020 MLB Draft comes your way on MLB Network on June 10th and 11th. Here's some notable number 1 overall selections, and these guys are some big boppers. Obviously, you got Griff Jr. there, Chipper Jones, A-Rod, Strasburg, the defending World Series champion, and Garrett Cole, who just signed that big juicy contract with the Yankees. Let's go all the way back, though, to 1965. Rick Monday, the first overall pick ever in the MLB Draft.
The draft itself is was an unknown. Unknown from a standpoint is that nobody had seen it before, obviously. I had spoken to the A's. It appeared that they would draft me as their number 1 selection. First pick ever in the draft. So we were at Rosenblatt Stadium in Omaha, Nebraska for the College World Series. And the draft takes place. I'm in uniform. We're seated in the stands down the right field line. Bobby Winkles, our coach, has us sitting right there, and we talked to Coach Winkles about our wishes and his wishes not to disrupt the rest of the team because of the draft. We still had a game to be played. Well, I found out somehow that someone said you were the number 1 selection.
With the first selection, the Washington Nationals select Steven Strasburg, Mark Appel, Garrett Cole, Carlos Correa, Bryce Harper.
Every year that number 1 pick is selected, and I know what they're going to go through. And I can tell everyone that's watching this, the number 1 pick, either is past or future. If you hit 2 home runs in the game, why didn't you have 3? If you had 4 hits in the game, why didn't you have 5? Because you are selected as the number 1 pick.
We are excited about Garrett Cole, and expectations are so high, it's almost like he can't possibly meet what the expectations are.
It is unfair at times, the tags. And how many number 1 picks have more expectations than the guy that's selected right behind him?
A swing and a long drive, deep right field, forget about it.
You know, the financial part of it has changed. That's fine. Expectations? No, they're still there.
Hey, Rick Monday had a heck of a career, 19 years. Back in 1981, a World Series champion, hit a definitive home run in the NLCS against the Montreal Expos. All right, so look now at the top 10 prospects for this upcoming draft. College heavy here. You got Zach Dean at number 7, the only high schooler age in the top 10. Who do you think, Harold, is going to go number 1 overall?
Well, you said it. It's a college draft really this year because of the fact we haven't got out to play. So they're going to use a lot of data. But I think even in a normal day where games have been played and you got great evaluation, Spencer Torkelson's blowing people away right now. Hands down, he will be the first pick in the draft, the first baseman from Arizona State. Got great plate coverage. He's going to remind a lot of people of Pete Alonso. But I think he's a better defender than Pete Alonso. He moves really well. Loves the strike zone. He's got great power in and out. So I think, to me, he's a can't miss first pick in the draft. There'd be no surprise. The guy next to him, Austin Martin, is between those two, but really Torkelson's blowing everybody away right now.
Dan, what do you think?
You know, Fran, this is going to be a strange draft because a lot of the Midwest and the East Coast, particularly a lot of the high school players, where you see a physical change in a guy from a sophomore to junior and junior to senior year with a limited, I believe, 5 rounds of the draft. I think teams have had to have done their homework on 16, 17-year-olds to try to project what they would have been or could have been as a high school senior. And I just think, Harold, if you look at this draft right now, I think that's one of the reasons why the first round is cluttered more this pre-draft, that it's going to be more college kids, because to me, that's a little bit safer bet than the unknown of a senior year for a high school kid.
No doubt about it, Dan. I mean, you nailed it. And particularly where we're at in baseball now, where it's about the sabermetrics and the numbers. There's not the old man with the cigar that projects Darryl Strawberry someday he's going to hit 40 in the big leagues. You don't have that anymore. And so now you're really relying a lot on data. So the college programs have the data, the Rapsodo, the exit velocity, things that they can really gauge on and feel comfortable with. And really that's what it's going to come down to. How comfortable our front offices with picking players. I'm going to tell you, having spent last summer at IMG Academy with the top 80 high school juniors who are now seniors that would be in this draft, I think they're going to miss out on some huge talent. But that's what's happened with this spring with those kids not being able to be seen, as you talked about, Dan. Their growth and everything else is not going to be evaluated.
All right, draft coming up here on MLB Network June 10th and 11th. Going to take a break now on MLB Tonight. When we come back, we'll spend some time with brand new Angels manager Joe Maddon, who comes full circle, started his career back in Southern California. We'll talk to the Angels skipper. That's next. All right, back on MLB Tonight, Fran Charles and Harold Reynolds. And check this out. This is a teleconference with members of a Harvard Business School. And the guy leading the charge is down from your second from the top right. That is Angels manager Joe Maddon. And so Joe Maddon has been taking care of business here as we wait for baseball to come back in 2020. But the Angels manager has been very busy. Let's welcome in Joe Maddon, and Harold is with me as well. Joe, talking to Harvard Business School, I mean, that's big time. You're a big deal.
It was interesting. I mean, this once this all hit, the pandemic, and we're going to be at home, I got in touch with Adam Chotsko, our media guy with the Angels, and also Rick Vaughn, who runs our foundation. RV had worked for the Rays for so many years. And I said, just get me some stuff, get me out there, because my concern or my thought was to maintain momentum of spring training of the 2020 season. And I've done things like this in the past with Skype, but the Zoom platform really opens things up even more. So I've done the Harvard Business School, I've done Princeton and Texas baseball teams, done the Arizona Miracle League. There's been a whole bunch of others that I've done, and I'm going to continue to do even into next week. And again, the point was to stay in touch, keep baseball at the forefront of everybody's mind, and whatever I could do possibly to help that particular group, whatever that might mean or to them, I wanted to be able to do that. So been doing it often, and I've really enjoyed it too.
Joe, I've got a chance to do some of those Zoom meetings too. There's always a theme. So I'm curious, what has been your reoccurring theme? You may have different subjects with each team depending on who they are, but what's been the big thing they've been asking?
Culture. How do you create culture? What is the leadership components that you like to follow? I think that's primary. I mean, they'll get into different, they'll get into the dress road trips, dressing up, whatever. They'll talk about other things. Not often about like a strategy or like we were just talking before this, hitting Trout first or second, whatever. It's been primarily about concepts and cultural concepts and identity. And those, I guess, quite frankly, that's what I want to talk about anyway with these particular groups. So that's where they'll start with, they'll go with that, and then they'll begin to ask questions. And of course, I'll be able to throw some stuff back that I believe in. And that's been the primary emphasis of most of these. And I've really enjoyed them.
Joe, your foundation, Respect 90 Foundation, has been involved with many aspects here as we're trying to battle this COVID-19 virus. Tell the folks at home what you got going on.
Well, the Respect 90 Foundation, my wife Jay and I founded it a couple of years ago. We've done fundraisers, and probably our main objective has been the Hazleton Integration Project in my hometown, where we've been distributing food boxes. And I just got a text today that we just threw out 4 to 500. I think that was yesterday, successfully, and I guess we're doing it a couple days a week. So the Hip Foundation, bringing the cultures together in my hometown. Homelessness has been big. We've donated some dough down to the Metropolitan Ministries in Tampa, tremendous facility, really well run. We had a fundraiser there before this all came to bear in this last fall. So we've done that too, Jay. We've just donated money here to the women's shelter in Long Beach. So the point is, obviously, when you get opportunities to go out there and raise money under the umbrella of Respect 90, the umbrella is encompassing more than it had originally. Pediatric cancer, we did the shaving of the heads this year, so we raised some money with Balding All Angels. So we're getting out there as often as we can. It's not like we're putting up a big number in all these events. They're more micro events that we try to raise money up over a period of time. And then the point is to distribute it. And so, Jay, my wife is pretty much in the forefront of all this. My cousin Bob Curry and Elaine, Rick Vaughn, who runs it. So we're just trying to make a difference somehow. I come from a small town, as you guys know, and it's pretty tough back there right now. And so we want to help.
That's great, Joe. You've always been a guy impacted everywhere you've been. Let's talk about your new team, the Angels. You only spent a couple weeks in spring training, but I know you're going to get to know these guys over this period of time. So what have you been doing to communicate with players, keep them motivated, and getting to know them, I guess, at this point in time?
There's been a lot of texting going on. I've done a couple of virtual cocktail parties with the Angel season ticket holders, and the other one, last one included Mike Trout and Justin Upton. I've had David Fletcher with Ty Butchery, and the first one I might have done solo. I can't remember, but as an example, it's texting. It's that I've done a video where I put a GoPro on my head and I walked through the clubhouse there at Diablo and try to recreate that first meeting that we had, right from my desk to walk through the clubhouse, standing in the middle, that slow circle that you do as you address a group and try to recount everything we had spoken about, walked up and down our identity wall, went through each component of that. And again, to remind, keep it in the forefront, exactly what we had talked about and what's going to be really important to us this year. Having said all that, I mean, for me, it's important also to give these guys some latitude and space right now, because the bigger concern should be your families, your health, your family's health, the health of your immediate family. So you want to be there, but you don't want to interfere too much. A lot of it's been with the coaches. I've had a weekly coaches Zoom session. Today I broke it down into the group that's going to be organizing the schedule. Tomorrow is going to be the hitting coaches. I did the pitching coaches last week. Now's the time when we're starting to see some movement to start creating an actual plan. Until you get to the point where there's some kind of a possible deadline or a goal line there, I didn't think it was wise or important. There's a lot of people are going to go through a lot of eyewash stuff right now and think they're going to be accomplishing things by having these over-organized Zoom meetings. It doesn't really matter. Let them be human beings right now. As we get closer, there's going to be plenty of time to get together the baseball components.
What's it like for you, Joe, personally? I mean, you're back with the organization where it all started as a minor league player. Way back when you won a World Series as part of the coaching staff with the Angels in 2002, and now you're back. How surreal is this all for you?
It is. I'm driving around Long Beach, just smiling the whole time. About 25 minutes from Anaheim Stadium. It's right down to 22. It's an easy ride to get down there. Because I had been here before, even when I was with the manager with the Rays. But before that, of course, with the Angels, you go home. I mean, how often do we get a chance to go home, especially after we've done it for several years like I have? I've compared it to Hazleton High and Lafayette College, and it feels exactly the same. You get that warm fuzzy when you check in. There's a lot of people that you know. You don't have to spend as much time building new relationships. There's a good feel about it. And on and on. And so I'm lucky, I'm fortunate, I'm grateful to have done the Cubs, having done the Rays, and now getting to come back home. Not many people get that opportunity.
Fran, I played with the Angels in '94, and Joe was coaching on the staff with the clipboard, and he was always the guy engaging with every player. So, Joe, I got to throw this one at you. On that team, Fran, was Bo Jackson. And we used to watch Bo take batting practice, and he hit balls to the stinking moon with one hip. All right. But, Joe, you were telling a story to the writers in spring training about Bo pitching, I think, or his throwing arm or something like that. Can you tell us that story real quick?
Yeah, I mean, the two arms that really, as position players, set apart for me were Sean Dunston and Bo. So the one day we're going out there to stretch, and it'd been post-earthquake where the scoreboard was up in left field. It was still 3 decks, and it was a little cattywampus up there. So it was a bunch of dudes fixing it with rivet mitts on. So we're ready. We haven't done anything. We're just standing out there by the warning track with the fence. And this sucker's on the 3rd deck, and it's straight up. I mean, straight up. Hey, Bo, throw us a ball. You know, Bo, I mean, of course, it's a wonderful challenge. He picked it up, took one step, one crow hop, threw it up, hit the guy right in the rivet mitt. And it's like, seriously? I mean, it hurts just thinking about that. I mean, Vance Lovelace blew out his arm in Quad Cities trying to throw the ball over a bridge, and that was like parallel. So I was the most impressive thing I've ever seen. And then I tried to talk to the guys. I said, listen, if his hip's bad and he can't run around, why not put him on the mound? I mean, you talk about the two-way player. Yeah, he was like two-sport player, but how easily could have done something else. And the guy was the best in the clubhouse. So my son came in, he put Joey up on his shoulder, and Bo was great. And of course we know that. Great. But I think he could have done he could have done more than one thing. I really believe that.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Angels manager Joe Maddon joining us. Joe, thanks for spending a little time and continued success as we hopefully look forward to a 2020 season with all the stuff you're doing away from the diamond.
Thank you. I just want to point out the VP of stuff, Tim Buss. He's our newest, greatest acquisition here with the Angels. And this is the guy that's pretty much running the off season for me, our VP of stuff. And I got to get one of these hats for all of my guys when they come back to camp.
We got to get one for Harold. Harold he's our VP.
I'm telling you, brother, these are great. And I got the hoodies coming and everything, the VP of stuff.
All right, the Angels manager.
Nice, Joe.
You're welcome. Good to see you guys.
Coming up, the story of a former Dodger who lost his World Series ring while on tour in Vietnam. We'll bring you the amazing journey of Roy Gleason from war all the way back to Dodger Stadium. That's next.
Home Plate Cam is presented by NTT.
Welcome back to MLB Tonight, presented by Camping World. Memorial Day weekend, Memorial Day coming up, always a big day and on the MLB calendar. We're going to do a deep dive and go back for you and show you some very fun games. This game with the Angels and Yankees, it was the first Memorial Day game for Mike Trout at a big day, had a couple of hits. We're also going to hit a double dip for the WBC, USA against the Dominican Republic and also Puerto Rico. And then at 2 p.m., you get the Mets and Dodgers from just a year ago. And on this Memorial Day weekend, we also thought we'd bring you the story of Roy Gleason, the LA Dodgers outfielder whose baseball career wasn't necessarily very memorable, but his military career in Vietnam was certainly remarkable. With more, here is Matt Vasgersian.
On a late September night in 2003, Dodger Stadium witnessed one of the most memorable pregame ceremonies in its history. A ceremony not honoring a Hall of Famer or a franchise icon. It was a ceremony honoring a man whose lifetime hit total was 1.
May I ask you, please, for a warm Dodger Stadium welcome to former Dodger Roy Gleason, an American hero.
In 1961, 18-year-old outfielder Roy Gleason signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers for $100,000, a figure that would translate to millions today. 2 years later, the Dodgers called him up to the majors, and on September 28, 1963, he got his first big league at-bat.
I swung at it, they hit a line drive, one hopper that the left fielder caught going over to his right, and I slid into second easily for a double.
That would be Roy Gleason's only major league at-bat.
The Dodgers win 2-1 and sweep the series in 4 straight.
The Dodgers were champions in '63, and although Gleason played in only 8 games that year, he earned a World Series ring. And that ring is at the heart of the remarkable story of Roy Gleason. The Dodger teams of that era were loaded with talent, so Gleason spent the next 3 seasons in the minors. 67 was going to be his year.
66 now, I had probably one of the best years in my minor league career. So I figured 67, I'm going to make the team.
The United States Army had other plans. Although he was the sole support for his family, which should have made him exempt, Gleason was drafted. He appealed, but to no avail.
One night, 3 MPs came to me and picked me up and said, we have orders, you're going to Vietnam. I just couldn't believe I was in this situation and I was actually going to war. We served in the Mekong Delta, and we were air mobile, and we went out daily on missions, and our job was to make contact. There was many days that went by that I honestly thought was my last. And I was just praying to God to let it hit me in the head, so that I don't feel the pain. Just take me out quickly.
On July 24th, 1968, Roy Gleason was walking point leading his patrol.
It was just a big explosion. The shrapnel had torn through my left wrist and my left calf, and I was shivering in Vietnam. And it's pretty hard to shiver in 110 or 115 degree heat. But I was, because I was going into shock from loss of blood.
Gleason spent months recovering at several military hospitals. In January of 1969, after 21 months in Vietnam, Roy Gleason came home. He was awarded the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart for his service.
I had seen it in his dresser. He always had it, tucked away under some books. And it wasn't until maybe I was 14 or so, I found out what it meant to receive a Purple Heart.
Gleason had returned a war hero, but the injuries he sustained in Vietnam had diminished his athletic skills. Though he played in the minors for 2 more seasons, in 1970, at the age of 27, his baseball career was over. One day, while he was looking through his footlocker returned to him from Vietnam, Gleason discovered something was missing.
I was looking through it, and there was no ring. With the World Series ring being gone, it was something that really meant a lot to me, and I was hoping that it would come later, but it never did.
Roy Gleason spent the next 3 decades in a variety of jobs, including selling cars. It was in 1999 at a Honda dealership in Anaheim that Roy's life would take yet another turn.
I just went in and, asked to see somebody, and he was the gentleman that I happened to meet.
And he says, did you ever go to Garden Grove High School? And I said, yes, I did. And he said, well, so did I. And we went on from there reminiscing. And I said, well, what have you been doing with your life? And when I told him, he said, Jesus, you ought to write a book. And I said, well, I've been told that many times, but I'm not really a writer. So if somebody wants to write a book about me, knock yourself out.
And that's just what Wally did.
I was just finishing up on the last part of the book, and I called the Dodger team historian. And then he became the catalyst for what happened at Dodger Stadium.
What happened at Dodger Stadium took place on September 20th, 2003. Nearly 40 years to the day after he had his one at-bat, the Dodgers honored Roy Gleason by having him throw out the first pitch before that night's game.
May I ask you, please, for a warm Dodger Stadium welcome to former Dodger Roy Gleason, an American hero, as he throws out the first ball.
I threw the pitch, and as I'm walking toward home plate, then I hear him again go,
"Hold it, Roy. Hold it."
In my father's mind at that moment, what was going through it was, he's going to make me throw it again because I one-hopped it.
I was, okay, good. I'll take the jacket off and fire this one in there. And so he said, we have something else for you.
As a member of the 1963 World Championship team, you received a World Series ring. And we know that that World Series ring was lost in Vietnam. And tonight, the Dodgers welcome you home, and Jim Tracy will give you your 1963 World Championship ring.
It was just unbelievable to me that they did that for me.
50,000 people cheering for my father all at the same time, and it's just awesome. You could see he was really thrilled to the point where he was almost in tears.
He covered it up well. He was all smiles and handshakes, but later on that night, when after the game, when we had driven home, he put that ring on his finger and it doesn't come off. That ring stays on his finger.
That night topped my first time at bat. Not only did I feel that they were thanking me for my service and honoring me for serving my country, but I felt that they were giving recognition to all Vietnam veterans that had served their country.
Almost 50 years after standing on second base as a rookie at Dodger Stadium, war hero Roy Gleason now feels more than ever a part of the Dodger family.
When I first saw my name on the wall, I never thought my name would be on it. Look who's right below me, Roy Campanella. There's all kinds of Hall of Famers around me, and I just can't believe my name's on here. I'd much rather be on this wall than the other wall. Even though my appearance in the majors is brief, I did play in the majors, and nobody can take that from me. That's something every kid dreams of, and I'm up there.
Great story on this Memorial Day weekend, Fran and Harold. And boy, what a story for Roy Gleason. That ring that was such an important part of his life. One hit in the big leagues. And kudos to the Dodgers for making a very, very memorable Memorial Day for Mr. Gleason. Terrific piece.
Tell you what, I'm sitting here watching that piece ready to cry, man. Just, as we go through this coronavirus, it puts in our generation and this time in perspective of sacrifice. What everybody else has come and done before us is amazing, particularly Roy's generation. Is heartfelt for me. I had two brother-in-laws that went to Vietnam, and fortunately they came back alive and healthy. But just the sacrifices of the generations that have gone on through this country, and just puts everything into perspective. Absolutely amazing story. I'm so thrilled for him, and one at bat, man, is pretty special just to get that.
Yeah, folks at home, take this weekend to understand what is truly important. As we take a break here on MLB Tonight, when we come back, we'll tell you why Sunday night will be a special one for the Washington Nationals. And Mark DeRosa spent some time with Juan Soto, and Soto is going to explain that Soto shuffle. That's next.
MLB Tonight is presented by Camping World, making RVing fun and easy since 1966. Visit campingworld.com today.
Back on MLB Tonight, earlier this week, the Rockies hosted a virtual ticket forum for their fans. Rockies personality Jenny Cavnar sat down with Ryan McMahon, David Dahl, and Trevor Story. Find out what these guys have been up to the last couple of months. Here's Story on his outlook for the season restarting.
You can't speak for every player, but I think for a lot of us, we think it's going to happen. And there's obviously a lot of things that need to be in line, and a lot of precautions that need to be taken, and those things are kind of being set up right now. And I think at the end of the day, if we can stay safe and are able to play the game safely, then and also keep our families safe, I think there's a really good chance it's going to happen.
Also, coming up this weekend, the Washington Nationals will hold their virtual ring celebration for winning the 2019 World Series. You can catch it Sunday at 7 Eastern on MLB Network, and also you can catch it locally on Maddon. Juan Soto, big part of that Nationals team that won that World Series. Coming up this weekend, he'll hook up with Mark DeRosa for play ball. You remember that Soto shuffle? Well, Soto explains to Dero whether he would do that against the fireballer Pedro Martinez.
So you turn 21 years old in the middle of the World Series.
That is hit in the air to right and way out of here. Wow!
And you could just kind of see this inner confidence coming out. Every at bat, you were completely controlling it. And you had the little the shuffle work, and where did that swag, that confidence come from?
Juan Soto, that patented shuffle in the box in between pitches.
When I was in the minor leagues, I mean, every time I go in the games, I used to swing everything. So my coach would tell me, hey, just be in one spot, don't swing anything. And when I start taking balls, I just get excited and I start jumping in the box, and that's how everything started. I mean, I just get happy when I take balls like that and all this stuff.
Could you tell it was starting to annoy the pitchers? Could you tell they were getting upset when you were doing that?
I mean, I just try to do it for me, and then I start seeing them like they getting mad and all this stuff. I'm like, hold on, I don't try to disrespect you. I just try to have fun. That's how I play my game.
See you later. Way up there. Somebody hit the weight room this morning.
So a guy I work with on the set, Pedro Martinez.
Swung on and missed. He struck him out. Number 10 for Martinez.
Would you do the Soto shuffle to Pedro?
He told me already he's gonna hit me right in the ribs. I don't. I try to control it. I'm like, go back.
Back toward that wall and out of here. Juan Soto with a 2-run first inning homer.
Game's in good hands with the youngins here. Play ball comes your way Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Mark DeRosa spent some time with Juan Soto. Going to take a break here on MLB Tonight as we hope Major League camps are close to opening as we get close maybe to a 2020 season. Up next, Dan and Harold are going to tell you what the most impressive drills they've ever seen their teammates do. That's next. All right, we're back on MLB Tonight, presented by Camping World. Guys getting itchy. You're ready to get back at it here. And let's show you some drills guys are working on. Got a Aristide Aquino. Looking at Lynn there, doing a little T work, Harold. And it's a pretty healthy hack here, huh?
I'm waiting for this ball to ricochet back and hit him. He hit it so hard.
No doubt. Dan, how about this? Hunter Green. Oh!
Whoa! How about the kicks on the back end? Are you serious? I wonder how many takes that took.
That was
Maddon,
pretty
that
impressive.
Ricochet off the car and hit you in the lips, Dan.
How about another red? This is Shogo Akiyama. Maybe Harold, he's trying to get his bat speed up here.
I don't know what he's doing, but hey, they do a lot of different stuff in Japan, and it works for them. That's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. It leads me actually to my most impressive drill I think I've ever seen. I was in an instructional league many years ago. I call this drill the Houston drill because the Astros middle infielders used to do this. You get a bucket of balls, and you're standing in your position to turn two, and they just started firing balls at you consecutively, and you just go like this, getting rid of it, just to speed your hands up. Really impressive drill. That's one of the best I've ever seen.
Harold,
Dan, what do you got?
I have a lot of I was out at Yankee Stadium. This is when Robinson Cano was still with the Yankees. He was doing a flip drill with the screen in front of him. Now watch where the screen is so his swing doesn't get long. And it was like swing after swing on a flip. He was hitting balls into the third deck. And that's when I knew right there, Fran, that it was time for me to go and that I left baseball at the right time, because when they were hitting flips in the third deck, the big lefty, it was time to get out the dough.
Shout out to NTT Home Plate Camp for hooking us up. Dan, Harold, I am Fran. Enjoy Memorial Day weekend and make sure you thank the troops. We'll see you Monday.